Today, I'd like to talk with you about something that I've been hesitant to get into too much, and that is the war on drugs. Um, I think there's a stereotype that libertarians are unnecessarily focused on the war on drugs and on marijuana, and there's a negative connotation to that. But it's not something that I can ignore, and I'd like to explain a little bit about why it means a lot to me. First off, let me say that I was a drug prosecutor in Baldwin County for a little bit over a year. I worked with the Baldwin County Drug Court, which is an excellent program that focuses on rehabilitation over incarceration, and I think it's an excellent program, and I was proud to be a part of it. But I've also seen from the very front lines what the war on drug does and how it's a major failure. And I hope that nobody takes that as me saying that our law enforcement here in Baldwin and Mobile County are failures. I have great respect for the law enforcement officers that I worked with, and I think and I hope that they have similar respect for me. I also think and I hope that a large portion of the law enforcement community would agree that the war on drugs is not helpful for anybody involved. It does not reduce drug use, it does not reduce drug addiction, it does not reduce crime. What it does do is treat a health issue as a criminal justice issue. When you have addicts, you have people that are ill, and we are taking these ill people and we are putting them in jail. This has proven time and time again not to reduce the rate of crime, not to reduce the rate of addiction, and in fact, we are seeing an explosion in opioid addiction here in Alabama. Now, I want you to do something, and I'll try to link to some of these maps in the comments, but it's a simple Google search. Take a look at maps of the states which have legal, medicinal, or recreational marijuana, and then take a look at the maps that have the highest amount of opioid prescriptions per person. And what you'll see is that, by and large, the states that have legal, medicinal, or recreational marijuana have much lower rates of opioid prescriptions. And the logical conclusion would be that those states also have less opioid addiction. So you have to ask yourselves, what are we doing? This month, more people will die of Tylenol overdose than have died of marijuana overdose in the history of the world. Think about that. Over-the-counter Tylenol. More people will die of acetaminophen overdose. And despite this fact, people are arrested, charged, and incarcerated for marijuana. Despite the fact that it's not in and of itself dangerous, and as we've discussed, despite the fact that it can be used in place of dangerous addictive opioid treatments and could lead to reduced opioid addiction in Alabama. And I believe that my opponents in this race will talk about the opioid crisis. I know they will. As well they should. It's a very serious issue, and we have to talk about it, and we have to develop solutions. But if you're talking about the opioid crisis and you're serious about addressing it, and you aren't willing to examine and change our marijuana laws, you're not willing to admit that we need to treat drug addiction as a health issue, a public health crisis, and not a crime, I question how serious you are about actually addressing this issue and actually helping Alabama overcome this crisis. Alabama did take some small steps forward regarding our attitudes towards marijuana in the last several years. If you follow my Facebook page, you'll see I posted about industrial hemp. And it was just a couple years ago that the legislature approved industrial hemp for education of higher learning. You have to apply for a permit, and then you can grow industrial hemp, which of course has no abuse potential. You cannot get high off industrial hemp, but still there was a great deal of debate regarding how much hemp it would take to get you high, as if that should actually matter. And of course, it doesn't. We also have, more relevantly, Carly's Law and Lenny's Law, which, I was encouraged when they passed, but they don't go nearly far enough. First, it is limited to CBD oil only. Secondly, there is nothing in place in Alabama whereby people can sell CBD oil. Essentially, you have to smuggle it into the state, and even then, Lenny's Law and Carly's Law only provide a defense if you are arrested for possessing it. So it's not like you get a card and you can't be arrested. It provides a criminal defense. It does not go far enough. We need legal medical marijuana in Alabama. Any number of medical professionals have said time and again how helpful and how therapeutic it can be for any number of conditions. And it's frustrating to me that we haven't gone further. Now, I've said before, and I'll say it again. It's not just a policy difference. It's not just something I disagree with for those who would keep medicine, a plant used as medicine, away from sick people. It's not just a difference of opinion. It's morally wrong to do that. And it's time we change that. And in doing so, it will help us address the money we're spending in courts to prosecute people who use marijuana, many of whom are using it for therapeutic purposes. We're going to address the opioid epidemic. There are any number of issues that we can get ahead of the game on if we simply set aside this outdated notion that marijuana is in and of itself a moral wrong. And what's similarly frustrating is that I know that members of our legislature, by and large, understand that addressing our current marijuana laws, that would be the right route to take. But the reasons they don't do it are going to be one of two things. Either ignorance, either they really don't know, and in which case they need to educate themselves. There's no excuse for not understanding that at this point. But the other reason that really upsets me is that they don't do it out of fear. They don't do it out of fear of the potential electoral repercussions if they make this a part of what they're fighting for. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to do that for a couple of reasons. The first is I think the people of coastal Alabama are intelligent enough and compassionate enough to know that this is the right route to take. And the second reason is I don't care what's right electorally. I care what's right. I have not and will not do something simply because it's electorally beneficial. If I do something, it's because it's the right thing to do. And that's not going to change here.